Hello again, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Megan Mendiola, and I'm a Regional Marketing Coordinator here at JMT. We're very excited to have our very own Mark Braisher here with us to lead us in today's webinar over Sage Intacct, why this ERP solution is the top choice for nonprofit organizations. I want to share just a couple of housekeeping notes before I turn it over to Mark. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please go ahead and submit those into the Q&A section on your control panel. I believe we'll go ahead and save those all until the end of the presentation, unless Mark sees something that comes up that he wants to answer right away. So don't hesitate to go ahead and submit those questions as you think of them. Also, just a reminder that we will send you both the slides and a recording for today's webinar within 24 hours after its conclusion. And now I want to take just a quick minute to introduce Mark Braisher to you all. Mark lives in Oklahoma City, and he is a sales engineer here at JMT. But before coming to work for us at JMT, he was actually a CFO himself for a small private college in Oklahoma. He and his team implemented Intacct actually into their own organization while he was there. So he really knows about Intacct from an end user perspective. And I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit more about that here in a bit. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Mark, to get us started.
All right. Thank you, Megan. Appreciate it. It's good to have you here with us today. We're going to spend a little time and try to give you a brief look at Sage Intacct. But before we do, I want to hit on a few things about JMT as well. As Megan mentioned, I'm a sales engineer. I've spent over 30 years in various nonprofits. For the last 13 years before coming to JMT, I was CFO of a nonprofit, small private college in Oklahoma. I have an MBA from University of Oklahoma. My email is there. If you have questions, you can ask them through the chat, and I'm always available to you, and you'll probably receive my email in another direction as well, but want to make sure that we're available to you. JMT was built to help nonprofits achieve their mission. We are a team of people dedicated to serving nonprofits. That's all that we do. Most employees and consultants, tech people, all the way up and down the spectrum of the employees at JMT have had experience in one way or another with nonprofits, either on staff, as CFOs, as technical people, as board members. And that is what we do. That sets us apart from many companies that you may do business with, is that we are totally dedicated to nonprofits. We do that because of our founder and CEO, Jackie Tizo. She served as a CFO and controller for numerous nonprofit organizations, helped the nonprofits with different financial aspects. And in 1991, she began JMT Consulting because what she saw was that many nonprofits were kind of having to take a back seat in the accounting tech world. And when for-profits were getting the best of what was able to be offered and the best in consulting, the best in implementation, nonprofits oftentimes were struggling, especially with the implementation. And so that has been our mission from day one, is nonprofits. We are the biggest independent, exclusively nonprofit consultant for accounting software. We have thousands of happy nonprofit clients. We do rapid and affordable implementations. We have deep nonprofit expertise. I've already mentioned personalized service. We are partnering with world-class software technology companies. But what you'll find when you partner with JMT is personalized service, that we are ensuring that you're successful, and we really only consider ourselves successful when you are. This kind of gives you an idea of where we have clients around the country, and even have an office now in Melbourne, Australia, have offices in New York and Nashville and Austin, Texas. We have clients all over the country, and for the last almost 30 years, we've been reaching out and making a difference in nonprofits' worlds. Here's a picture of some of our clients, just a few of them. There's about 2,000 in all throughout the years, and we're proud to partner with each one of these. We are an independent consulting firm, and that should be, here's why that should be important to you. It is important to you because our job is not to sell a specific software, but our job is to help you be successful in what you do. We are not a software publisher. Our commitment is to you. We curate only the best solutions, and we assemble a perfect for you solution from our ecosystem of best-in-class partners. So what we have done is regularly we do go out and find the best solutions. We are convinced that Sage Intacct is the best nonprofit accounting solution at this time, and that's the reason that we are sharing that with you today. But we also have other solutions, and I'll show you a diagram of some of that in just a moment. But our goal is not to sell a specific software. Our goal is to find the software that best suits you, and then make sure that through implementation that you're able to use that software to the fullest extent. One thing we often hear from clients when we're talking to them or potential clients is, we bought this software, but we're unable to, we know it can do a lot of things, but we're not able to make it do it. We're not sure we know how, we're not sure if it's all implemented. Our goal as a consulting firm that provides accounting software is to make sure that you're using the software to the fullest extent. And we are convinced that when you do that, you will have great benefit from Sage Intacct. So this is kind of the world of back office systems that you may have. There is nonprofit financial reporting, there's grant management, there's budget management, human resources, and the list goes on and on. But what we do is we encourage you to find the best one that fits. And in fact, Sage Intacct fits well with that, because Sage Intacct does not pretend or try to be the best at every one of those areas, but predominantly it's a financial accounting software. But what it does do is that it plays well with all those other software packages. And so through integration or export import, there are many partners with Sage Intacct that allows that to be a smooth transaction. And so we'll see clients that have various human resource management, different ones have AP automation, but we're not selling just one or the other. There's a lot of good ones out there, and we want you to get the one that is best for you and fits well for you, and we will make and Intacct will play well with that. The best word that we can say is what some of our clients said, and this particular testimonial we appreciate very much, from John Recliano from Cancer Care, and he hits on what I've just mentioned before. The onboarding process was the crowning achievement. After it was done, I couldn't imagine doing it without them. Our consultants, those that implement for us, will ensure that not only is the implementation is done right, and that you're able to get what you need set up for your new software, but also that we will educate you to make sure that you're able to use it when we turn you loose with it. Characteristics of a best-in-class financial cloud ERP. First of all, there is the issue of integration. So whether it be for, and I've mentioned that already, but whether it be for financial planning and analysis, human resources, payroll, mobile employee expense and time tracking, automated invoice and payment processes, and the list goes on and on, grant management, Intacct is going to integrate well with that. We can refer you to a significant number of additional software that integrates well with Intacct and integrate with software of your choice. Many of our clients have software that they want to integrate that they bring with them when they load up with Intacct, and that is fine. We will work with that, but we can also recommend software to you if you need that. Automation, workflows, automated processes for greater control, more efficient, more time on strategy. If you're a CFO, all of us who have CFOs have spent more time than we ever wanted to spend on manipulating numbers in spreadsheets getting data in the right place, getting data in the right form. And the goal of automation is for us to spend less time on that and more time on analysis and strategy. So that you, as a CFO or whatever position you play, you can spend your time doing what best serves your organization, and that is bringing analysis to the table, and that's your great skill. And so automation allows us to do that. I always tell clients as we're talking to them that it is our goal to have as little, if any, processes done outside the software. So Excel sheets, that sort of thing, you can export into Excel sheets if you'd like, but we'd like to be able to do everything within the software. And most things we have found that we can do that within Sage Intacct. And then the final piece of the characteristics of a good software is the visibility. And we're going to look at dashboards, but dashboards, real-time reports. I was on a call with a client earlier today, and they were talking about having to wait till the end of the month before they could see where they really were in their finances. With Sage Intacct, you have real-time data. You have dashboards that are up to the minute of any entry within the system, and you're able to see what's going on right now and provide analysis for that. You can also, from those dashboards, and I'll show this in a moment, have the visibility to a magnifying glass to interrogate the data, to go deep into it, or to drill down. And so that's what we're going to look at today. So I'm going to switch over to our software itself and share a few things about that. Are we good, Megan?
Yes.
Okay.
Looks great.
All right. So we'll begin first with the dashboard. You have in front of you a dashboard that I've set up for CFO. You can set this dashboard up for whatever roles you want to, or individuals that you want to set that up for. And as you use the various roles, it changes to go with the data that you have for them. Also, Intacct has the ability to have multiple entities, and so you have access to those here. You have the top level, but you can also have access to just a specific entity if you would like to do that. Within Intacct, and just give you some nuts and bolts of the pieces, the various modules, and you're going to see some modules possibly pop up today that is not on every system, but they are available, and you can see that they're easily accessible. Also, as we look at the dashboard, as we look here at this particular dashboard, typically your dashboard would probably have today, and that is the default rather than 12/31/2014. But since I'm working with demo data today, I've set that date. And so, but you can change that. And so you could change that back and back up to today if you would like to do that. And when you do that, all the data changes with that. You can also filter by the various dimensions. Intacct uses a dimension chart of account, which has not only your GL and your department and your funds, but also, as you can see here, entities, projects, programs is very customizable. And as you change the filters in this particular wall here, you're able to change the data as well. So if you wanted to change just to a specific grant, you could do that, and it would have the information for that specific grant. As we look at the data within the dashboard, there are a number of items that can be put into a dashboard, and it's, as I mentioned, it's very customizable. Across the top here, I have what we call performance cards. And the performance cards gives us data at a glimpse. We can see what the various areas are doing, and just about any piece of data that you want to create, you can put in a performance card so that you can keep an eye on those, and as those even fluctuate through the day. Another thing about Intacct that is very helpful is Intacct not only does as these first three performance cards show, they show primarily financial, but Intacct also does statistical data, and it handles statistical data just like it does financial data. It has you have journal entries and the whole 9 yards. You can import into it. If you're coming from another system, maybe a fundraising system, or you're coming from a health record system or something like that, you can import data straight into Intacct to be able to keep an eye and provide reports out of that. And then also the ability, since you have the financial and the statistical, you also have the ability to mix those two. And so in this particular performance card, we have a gift per donor. And so in the system, there are the number of donations that have been made. There's also the amount of gifts that have been given. And so we can see the gift per donor is $53 a month this month. And so the CEO or the head of development would love to be able to keep an eye on that and see where it's going. And so the performance cards allows us the ability to do that. Then on the sides of this particular dashboard, I also have the charts, and you can have charts of all kinds that you might want and keep an eye on. And then down the middle I have, and then you can arrange this how you'd like, I have a number of reports. And so I want to take a few moments here and delve down into some of the reports and let you see some of the things about them. So any report that you create in Intacct, you can put on the dashboard. You may have a CEO that wants to keep an eye on a particular report. You can set up the CEO's, set up her dashboard so that she has the information right in front of her. Sometimes CEOs are not, do not spend much time in reading financial reports, and so it may not be something that they would enjoy or benefit from manipulating themselves. But if we can put the report on the dashboard for them, have easy access, and not only do they have easy access to be able to look at the bottom line and that sort of thing, but they also have the ability to dive down and drill down into any of the reports. So straight from here, not from the report, there's a reporting module within Intacct, but straight from the dash, and you can go there, but straight from the dashboard, you can drill down into this, and I'll do that in just a moment. Let me highlight some things here on this particular budget report. We have the accounts, the GL accounts down the left side. We have our revenues, we have our expenditures, we have a budget, the operating budget. We have funds that came in or were spent permanently, restricted funds that came in, and then we have unrestricted spending as well, and then temporarily restricted spending, and then a summary of that and the results of that. And so you have all that information right there. If you would like to drill down and you wonder why on this particular one we had membership fees, we had budgeted $171,000, but instead we brought in $295,000. Development did a great job increasing membership fees. But if you want to see what that came from, you can drill down within that. And so you see here the various monthly entries, and we can see that in January was a big month, and it was overwhelming month, and you had 114,000, and you can drill all the way down to the level of when the actual entry was put into the system. And here we have the membership fees right there. So you go all the way down. In addition to that, you can have an attachment. If you have attachment giving explanation, the attachment can be pulled up right there. And so from the dashboard, you can go all the way to the actual entry of the transaction. While I'm here, let me point out a couple more items about Intacct that may be of interest to you. If you'll notice this banner, and it'll pop up probably more times than I want to see today, but the 2020 release number 3 has come out. Intacct, and that is one of the benefits of having your software in a cloud and being a true cloud software, is that the updates are automatic within your system. Now, sometimes there's a significant, a couple of years ago, they did a major significant update, and they gave some time for you to decide which user interface that you would use. But typically they're just improvements, small pieces that allow you for them to improve the software for you, and they come out 4 times a year. When they do, you're going to find this banner which tells about it. In fact, there's notices before time, and they give all the release notes here and actually a video that walks you through each one of those. And so we have found, I know sometimes that updates are a little bit threatening because I like the way it works now, but we have found that Intacct does a tremendous job. And if it didn't, we would be concerned about it, because we want you to be able to continue to function and continue to function even better with the new updates. And so they do a great job with the release notes. They do a great job with the videos and allow you to keep up to date and see the new things. One thing that I'll probably allude to in a moment, but credit card feeds and reconciliation is an example, and that is one that has been put in. They've always had bank reconciliation. Now you can do credit card feeds where you're automatically connected to your credit card and it feeds the transactions into your system, and reconciliation. And you can reconcile the credit cards just like you do a bank account. Again, I talk to clients, and clients will tell me that they're running down people to try to figure out what they use the credit card for, or credit cards for the corporate account. And this allows them to be able to keep up with that on a day-by-day basis. In fact, what we found is that people who do the bank feeds basically are reconciling their bank accounts almost on a daily basis, because as those come in, they match them up with their transactions, and they're reconciling as they go. When they get to the end of the month, which has been traditionally a big process of setting aside a day or two or three or however many it took to do month-end closing, a significant portion of that is already streamlined and taken care of, because with the bank feed and now the credit card feed, you're able to stay up to date on those things. So that's just an example of one of the many reasons that we like Sage Intacct. So the updates. Another thing I want to point out to you, and you'll see this box a number of times throughout our time today. This is the collaborator. It works like a function of we've all been attuned to text or Facebook, and it allows you to post. And so let's say the CEO drills down to this and sees this $114,000. They can jump on here and put in the name of the CEO or CFO, and right there you see my name pop up. They could click on that, send a message, and say, hey, what's going on with this $114,000? What caused this great increase in our membership fees? And this note stays with this transaction. It would pop up on the CFO's screen where they would see it, and they would be able to answer. And so if the answer is given, and I know oftentimes when I was CFO, I'd ask somebody on my staff, why did this turn out this way, or why did we do this way? And a week later or a month later, I would forget what the real answer was. But with this collaborator, you're able to keep that thread of conversation, and therefore able to keep up with the documentation of why you did what you did. So it's a simple tool, but it's very, very helpful in the fact that you're able to chat within the system, tied to specific transactions, and the discussion stays with the transaction. So that is our budget report, as you can see. And reports are totally customizable. I don't know that we'll get to all that today, but it's unbelievable, and I'll show you some more reports, and you'll see some of that today. So here's a 990 statement of functional expenses. So your 990 report, you're able to set that up. We've got the various categories that the IRS wants us to use for the 990. Grant position, the ability to, what has happened here is we flipped the chart. We've had our GL down the left side. Now we've got the dimensions down the left side, and this particular one is grants. And we see the award amount, money that has been awarded to this organization by these different foundations and grants, how much of it has actually come in, how much is left to draw, how much has been spent, and how much are the remaining funds. And so the ability to keep an eye on that, and as you can see, and you could filter this to just a number of grants, a handful of them if you'd like, if you have a grant manager, and just to their particular grants. And so you can see the ability and the things that can happen there. Finally, I want to show you this report before we move on to some other things. This is just an expenditures, and you've got your budget and you've got your actual, but then this column is your commitments. And so in this particular case, we're year ending. As we close out the year, we have a budget of $440,000 for program expenses. We spent $441, but the fact is we've committed. There has been a purchase order approved for another $14,000. And so that allows us, in this particular column, the commitments, Intacct allows you to create not only your accrual book, but also additional books, user-defined books that allows you to do a variety of things like that. And so that's an example of how that would work. So let's go into some more of Intacct and look at some other pieces of the puzzle. Let's start with some accounts payable information here. This is just the configuration page for accounts payable. I just wanted to show you this instead of going too deep in the nuts and bolts of how you do a payable. Sometimes being able to see the bones on the backside is helpful. So as you can see here, for accounts payable, you have the different journals, and so in this particular course, you have an accounts payable journal, which the various journals feed directly into the general ledger, and so they're always there. You can see the particular accounts that are set up, again, showing you all this because all these things are customizable for you. You are how you're going to make payments for the different vendors that you might have. Ability to decide if release to pay, how you're going to handle that. Let me go down a little further here and show you some of the actual workflow pieces, the background to it. You can have enable bill approval, and you can manage that with individuals or roles. You can also do payment approvals, and you can set up the different levels for that. And so however your workflow is, and the Intacct can be pretty well customized to fit that. The number of people that you use for your workflows as far as approvals, who they are, so on and so forth. And so with the AP system that is set, you're able to do that with Intacct. I know when I moved from one accounting software to Intacct as a CFO, I found the options that were available. On one side, you think the options may be overwhelming, but the fact is it made things very simple because I was able to customize the software to fit who we were and where we were. Here's an example of a bill, and I just wanted to show this to you and give you an idea of what this looks like. You've got your various dimensions here, and within those dimensions, you're able to use a specific ones that you have pulled on here, but you can also pull down the screen and do additional ones here, as they said that they've used these dimensions for this. This particular check mark, and I'll refer back to this in a moment, but this particular check mark, the billable, allows you with the grants module to set up grant expenses billable to a particular grant, and I will show you some of that information. But it automatically tracks that for you, so there's no trying to track expenses that you're going to bill back to a grant or time or purchases. But you can automatically do that by marking it billable. When you get ready to create your invoice for the grant foundation, you're able to immediately pull anything that has not been previously billed into the invoice. So it's very flexible. You can even do prepaid expense schedule where you amortize your expenses over a period of time. And so attach the actual invoice to it if you would like to do that. Another piece of the puzzle is with vendors, when you assign vendors, when you set up vendors, you have the option, if you would like, to automatically have a default GL for them. And as a default GL, you can override that, but it saves some time, saves some effort, and saves mistakes of hitting the wrong GL. All of us have one time or another have wondered why a particular account was off a bit and had more money or less money than you expected. And when you dig down into it, somebody had clicked on one account number above or one below. This helps break that. and allows you to make sure that you're posting it to the right GL. And you can do that with the other dimensions as well. So that gives you a look at the AP and the bill template. I mentioned a moment ago, end of month with bank reconciliation. Here's a screen of a recently already completed bank reconciliation. And so there are going to be a lot of zeros across here, but what you see here is when you begin, you see unmatched transactions, unmatched amount. And then what has happened here, because all these transactions are already matched, as my filter says here, it shows the amount of checks, now amount of deposits, the beginning balance, statement ending, and how much to reconcile. And so this particular account, this particular month is reconciled. It allows you to filter. So in this particular demo database, we don't have a whole lot of transactions. You may have pages and pages of transactions. And so as you begin to try to find specific transactions, you're able to pull up a whole variety of filters to dig down and look at a amount range, a payee, a date range, a GL range, and so on and so forth. And so you're able to search for specific transactions in that way. As I mentioned when we began, you can also, and since this is a demo, we do not have the ability to show you, but you can also do a bank feed. And if you do that, here where you have Intacct, so this is basically your books of your transactions in this particular checking account, you would also have the bank feed. So you'd have the bank side of this. And so you would be able to go between the two of them and match up these transactions. And so again, we have many clients that move to the bank feed and take that option. And when they do that, they're able to keep up with transactions. If you have individuals, if you have people, staff members that are out on the road who are charging to a credit card, charging to a debit card, you're able to keep up with that. And it's not a, let's wait till the end of the month and see how much money was spent on the credit card, but it's a day-by-day thing of keeping up with your cash. And so you're able to use the same reconciliation for credit cards as you are for banks, and the same type of feed as you are for credit cards. And so it's become, this is one area, speaking about the new releases, this is one area that Intacct has improved dramatically over the last year or two with their bank feeds, and then just recently with their credit card feeds and reconciliation. And very pleased with it. Clients have found it very, very helpful.
Hi, Mark.
Yes.
We had a couple questions come in. I think now might be a good time to get to the couple that we do have right now. I think you could speak to them well. The first one asks, we currently use Abila MIP fund accounting and use 4 different segments for coding. So fund, general ledger code, cost center, grant, location. Are we able to mirror those in Sage Intacct?
Absolutely. So I mentioned the dimensions, and so MIP uses the term segments. Intacct uses dimensions, and with dimensions, you're able to you can mirror all of those. And in fact, you may find yourself wanting to add additional ones, because let me take a risk, since the question was asked, and jump to right quick. Here's an example of the dimensions that are available in this particular system. And so I think there's about eight or 9 that are built in, and they're all customizable for you. And then also you have built in with the main module, you have 2 user-defined dimensions that you can use as well. And so yes, you can mirror that. Plus, you may find yourself finding opportunity to add additional ones. So,
great. And then the other question that we had come up is, does the application have the ability to scan a document directly from the scanner to the attachment location from within the app, or does it have to be scanned separately and then attached or downloaded? Attached and uploaded.
Yeah, the typical way of doing that is having it in your system already on your computer already, and then clicking and dragging it in, clicking and dragging this way. I don't think it will scan directly in. It's a click and drag, but it's very, very smooth to do that. So.
Okay, great. And then we had one more question come in talking about the bank rec. So if you could answer that quickly too. It says, when using the bank feed, does the system automatically mark outstanding checks as cleared?
Yes, it matches. It gives you, it helps you match. Of course, you can override that, but it does the matching for you. Yes. So.
Great. That's all that we've had come in so far.
All right. Okay, I'm going to jump into something a little deeper and go to just give a picture of an allocation. I've got a couple more screens here that I might show here for a moment. But let's look at this allocation. Actually, here it is right here. And so in the system, in Intacct, you have allocations built into the system that are that do not change. For example, if you want to allocate your employee benefits by a certain percentage to each department across the board, and it stays pretty much the same. You can set up a allocation and hit that allocation, and automatically divides that, allocates that transaction. But you can go a step deeper with this and a step further with this, and there's a module called dynamic allocations, which is very impressive. And what it does is actually allows you to set up the basis for your allocation and then schedule the allocation to happen, for example, whatever time period you want, but typically at the end of the month. And so it will take, for example, if your benefits allocation is based upon salaries and wages for the month, and you want to allocate therefore your benefits across the departments based on how much was spent on salaries for that particular month, then it automatically gather those transactions and figure the allocation for you. And so I'm not going to go through the whole process. And in fact, it is something that you set up, and it works actually overnight for you to be set up and ready to go the next day. But this is a history of one. This is a journal entry of an allocation. And so as you can see here at the bottom, what the original transaction was employee benefits in a shared department, so it wasn't in a specific department, for $2,000. And so the goal here is to allocate that across the various departments according to a set criteria, which in this case is the salaries that was spent. And so let's dive down and we'll see how it did that. So what you have here is you tell the system, and you do this, you set this up one time and leave it. You can come back and you can edit it and change it, but you set it up and you can leave it. And so you choose which dimensions that you're going to look at. You're going to choose which dimensions you're going to leave alone, and you're going to choose which dimensions you don't even pay attention to. Then you look at your source pool. In this particular case, as I said, it's employee benefits. And so you got your source pool, you've got the specific filters, your department. As you remembered a moment ago when I said the department was a shared department, it wasn't a specific department, and the entity was 100. And so it's going to look for employee benefits, that's the account group, in this dimension to figure out for our source, and that was that $2,000. Then it goes in and says, what's the basis for this allocation? And as I mentioned, it's the salary and wage expense, and Intacct makes use of account groups for a variety of things, reporting being one of them, but in this particular case, for allocations. And it's a dynamic allocation. So it's going to find that. And so what it's going to do is base that upon salary and wages within this entity 100. Now notice here we were using a department. Here the department's not even mentioned, so it's going to grab from all departments in that for this particular allocation. And then you have the target entry. And so we could look at each of these calculations, but this is the one that's most beneficial for you to see. And that is, this is how then it splits it. And so these numbers, these percentages may change from month to month, but then it's going to take these percentages, apply it to the benefits, and then it's going to allocate the the transaction as it needs to do. And so if we go back then, here was the original transaction of $2,000, and following those particular percentages that I just showed you, it will divide that transaction among these departments. So something that would take 3 or 4 spreadsheets for you to do, and a significant amount of time to find this particular transactions and to maybe export those into an Excel sheet, total the numbers that you need, and then do the percentages and such. Intacct is able to do that. Again, the goal of accounting software for CFOs and for people that have to make decisions from it is not to spend a lot of time moving numbers around, but to let the system do the numbers, let the system manipulate the data the way that you instruct it to do, and then provide you the information so that you have the reports to show. And there you come back to the dashboard and you're able to show the reports and show the information that is really helpful in making plans for your organization, for creating strategy for your organization, and therefore allowing you as an organization to spend less time manipulating numbers and more time doing the mission to which you've committed yourself. And that brings us back to the beginning of my slides, and that is why we're here. We want you to be able to do your mission better. Nothing pleases us more. We know that all of us in the finance world have spent a lifetime working in finances, but the goal of finances is not just to work with numbers in Excel sheets. The goal of the finances is to be able to do good things with those, and we want to help you to be able to do that. So I'm going to stop right there. We could go deeper in different areas, but it's 1:45 almost, and depending on what part of the country you're in. And if there's any other questions, I will take those, but I'm going to turn it back to Megan and field anything else that we need to do.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. So it looks like there haven't been any other questions. Oh, wait, one just popped up. It's asked, can the software build budgets?
Yes, it sure can. It can build them, and you can build the budgets, again, across all those dimensions. You're able to build those on any reporting period that you would like. You can go back and edit the budgets. We also, JMT has a planning and budgeting and planning software that we also work with called Vena, which we are very, very impressed with, that integrates with Intacct. And so in the conversation, you would probably, if that is a big time consumption, and it is for most organizations, my encouragement would be to look at what Intacct has, but also look at what Vena has. And again, our job is not to sell a specific software. Our job is to help you accomplish what you need to do. Can I import payroll and allocated based on per employee distribution calculation? Yes, yeah, you can import payroll. And so once you put the payroll in there, and you can import that, the import is a very simple process. There may be an integration for that, or there can be an integration created for it. But at the very least, you can do an import, which is rather simple. You can get an export from your payroll software, import it into, and the way that I did it was just have a lookup in an Excel sheet and did an import with a company that we had. But there's several that have you can do some integrations as well. And then once it's in the system, that is just a journal entry transaction like any other journal entry, any other transaction in your system. And so therefore it has the ability you can do allocation straight off that data.
Great. Looks like we have one more question.
There are
Mark.
Okay. There are specific file formats for imports, or can basic Excel? Yes. There's no definition files. It's Excel spreadsheets. And so as much as we've all used Excel sheets and sometimes got frustrated with them, they're wonderful to be able to do that kind of thing. And so you export with an Excel sheet, do a lookup for your new import, and have it imported straight in.
Great, and we really love all the questions, which
Absolutely.
kind of brings me to my next point. Yeah, all the questions are great and welcome, and we love that people are asking more details about what Sage Intacct can offer, because it can really do so much for your organization. And kind of brings up my next point, what I wanted to talk about a little more is follow-up from today's webinar. So it looks like a lot of people are liking what they're seeing in so far as Sage Intacct based on the questions. So I'm going to be reaching out to all of you through a phone call following today's webinar. Hopefully this afternoon I'll be able to reach you just for a more personalized discussion over Sage Intacct, what you thought of the webinar, how you think that Sage Intacct might be able to fit your organization's needs. I would just love to hear from you more about your organization and share with you a little bit more about what we do at JMT and our relationship with Sage Intacct. Once I'm able to make sure that there's a fit there, we can jump into a more personalized discussion about how we can get you up and running in the Intacct system based on whatever your timeline may be. So really just be looking forward to that call from me this afternoon, and we can discuss a little bit more about Intacct and next steps on where to go from there based on what you thought of the webinar and what you thought of Sage Intacct based on that. And it looks like we haven't had any other questions come through, so we'll go ahead and end the webinar here in a bit. One thing before we did close out today, I do want to tell you that we have another webinar coming up on September 1st, and it's over Jumpstart for Sage Intacct, which speaks more to our implementation process here at JMT for Sage Intacct. So if you enjoyed what you saw of Intacct today, I would definitely recommend getting signed up for that. That's totally free, and you can register on our website at jmtconsulting.com. And that's all I have for today, Mark. Just again, I'll be following up with everyone here after the webinar. So, Mark, did you have anything before we closed out today?
I'm good. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we just thank everyone so much for being here, and we look forward to connecting with you after this webinar. So just thank everyone so much again. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day, continuing to stay safe and healthy. We do hope that everyone is doing that, and we'll go ahead and let everyone go. Bye, everyone.